What's up, guys? Welcome back to the third and final match here with the Under the Microscope series for Blue-Black Control. Looks like we won the die roll, and yeah, let's go ahead and play first. Yeah, this looks like a sweet hand to me. Obviously, we don't have much interaction if our opponent is a creature deck. There's an argument for leading with Creeping Tar Pit because we don't know what our opponent is playing, and we don't know what we're looking for with Serum Visions. And then we still have a turn 2 play if we want it. So I actually like that. I like probably leading on Creeping Tar Pit here. We want to make sure we use Serum Visions to find answers for specific matchups, and not just, blow away the scry, because the scries do get important, especially if games go longer. Looks like our opponent is tanking whether they should keep their 7-card hand. Alright, guys, looks like our opponent is back here. Took a while. Probably didn't realize the match has started, but it has started. And again, I'm going to lead on Creeping Tar Pit like I mentioned before. And we'll see what our opponent is playing here. Darksteel Citadel, so if this is like Affinity, we might have a rough time here. Yeah. Oof. Okay, so they could have a pretty fast start here. They could have a 2-drop on turn 1 here. We don't have Fatal Push, but at least now we know what we're looking for when it comes to Serum Visions. And we do, of course, have Damnation in our deck. So double Vault Scourge. Pretty explosive start for my opponent here. I wonder if they have a payoff spell. Again, I'm going to save this Spreading Seas for some of their man lands. So let's just go ahead and Serum Visions. And I led with Island here to make sure that if I draw Fatal Push that I can cast it. Anyways, that is a Fatal Push on the top of our deck. Spire of Industry. So I wonder if they have their payoff spell here. They have Etch Champion. Ooh, Etch Champion is really, really good here. So it looks like we're going to take a bit of damage. And here, again, I could save Spreading Seas. I think I'd rather actually just, especially because we have Field of Ruin now, I think I'd just like to dig through my deck a little more, looking for Damnation. And now we can Fatal Push something if we want to. Maybe like a Steel Overseer or a Arcbound Ravager. Signal Pest. Signal Pest is actually pretty threatening. But again, in order to save some life here, I think I'm just going to Fatal Push one of these Vault Scourges. Whoops. Looks like we take 4 there, so we're not... And that's a Damnation. Okay, so we are definitely back in this game. I don't think I'm going to wait a turn. I think I'm just going to go ahead and pop it off right now. Okay, and then we have in 2 turns, we have Snapcaster Mage into Damnation again, if we need to. Our opponent could still have another Etch Champion here, which would be troublesome. That is another Etch Champion, just like I just mentioned, but we do have a bit of breathing room here, right? We have Glimmer of Genius to go for an untapped land for our next turn. So we're only taking 2 damage here. Yeah, I think we're in a really good spot here. Opponent draws a land. Pretty good for us. So obviously hitting like untapped land plus another Damnation would actually just be better than... So I'm going to fetch first. Those are both really good cards. They're not untapped lands though, which is the problem. And it plays, like, both of these cards play a little poorly with my Snapcaster Mage plan Cryptic Command doesn't, right? So we could bottom Tasigur, top, and 2 Cryptic Commands, alright. The question is, do we go for it right now? I think we do. I don't think we don't get much by waiting, we just risk taking more damage. And now we're sitting really good if we can dodge 1 draw step from our opponent. Okay, Inkmoth Nexus doesn't matter because we have Field of Ruin. Wow. We could play that. Yeah, I kind of like playing that. Of Delta. Now we can still keep up Cryptic Command. Yeah, we'll definitely counter that. Counter target spell, draw a card. So they get us for 1 infect here, but in the long run, that's not going to matter. And our opponent concedes. Makes a lot of sense. All right, so we do have to be careful here. Affinity is quite explosive, so all removal spells are coming in. I do like Collective Brutality in this matchup for this archetype specifically. Negate is also a consideration for platings. And then Ashiok, definitely not a consideration. Scarab God is a solid finisher, so we can put that here, but let's start with cuts, right? This is definitely not a Crucible matchup, and this is definitely not a Search for Azcanta matchup, so let's go ahead and start with those cuts right there. Pull for tomorrow, I'm thinking like if we were blue-white control, would we cut Sphinx's Revelation in this matchup? And I don't think we would. So what do we cut? We could cut 1 Glimmer of Genius because they're a little expensive. We could cut 1 Spreading Seas, although Spreading Seas is not bad. We could just cut both Search for Azcantas, get these in here, and then we could also the thing is like it means they would go turn 3 plating, which is when Negate would be relevant. We could also just cut 1 Cryptic Command because those are really slow. And we could bring in a Negate. Yeah, I think maximizing our early interaction is pretty important here. Okay, let's take a look at our opener here. Spell Snare is a fantastic card to have in our opener. It's unfortunate, though, that we don't have Untapped Land into Untapped Land, because Spell Snare into Mana Leak is one of the best ways to fight off Affinity's early aggression. Looks like our opponent's mulliganing to 6 here, which is definitely a good sign for us. Affinity is one of those matchups that can still pull off a very explosive start with 6 cards, but the less explosive they are, obviously, the better it is for us. And it looks like... Again, I'm going to lead with Spell Snare because it's just so important that we get to counter something on turn 2. So we don't fall too far behind. Obviously, though, this Fetid Pool is not being a Drowned Catacomb, as I was thinking before. Definitely hurts. If we can draw Untapped Land here, that would be great. Although, Damnation is one of the non-land cards that are non-untapped land cards that I would accept here. So if our opponent goes like Etched Champion, that's fine. Again, Spell Snare is such a good card in a matchup like this, but it's not great all the time. So I'm really happy that we were able to see it in our opener. Arcbound Ravager, sure. So of course we still want to find land number 4 here. That is land number 4, but unfortunately, it's a tap land. So, tap lands are coming in to hurt us here. At least most of our colors will be online, and we do have Negate plus Mana Leak up right now for a worst case scenario. I think we're in a really good spot, actually. Although the fact that our opponent isn't unloading a bunch of cheap artifacts means they either have a bunch of lands or they have a bunch of payoff spells. Do I want to Mana Leak this? Because I could just Damnation in a couple turns, but I think I want to Mana Leak this. Because I don't want to be forced into Damnationing. I want a Damnation from a good position. Interesting. Let's just go ahead and play the pools here. We could have played Jace Uptick. Excuse me, guys. I'm still a little bit sick here, but yeah, Overseer. I think like we could go Snap Spell Snare and then block the Arcbound Ravager, and it would force them to sack both of their Darksteel Citadels. But I think this is fine. Of course, they could have Spell Pierce here. Spell Pierce would be quite a blowout. Although if we draw untapped land for turn 6, then we could go snap Spell Pierce, or snap Damnation. And looks like they do have the Spell Pierce here. Yep. Oh. So we're not in as good of a position as I was hoping we would be here. If they have multiple Spell Pierces, we could be in a really rough spot. Springleaf Drum, okay. I imagine they could play a creature here and then, yep. So they don't need to play a creature here, sure. They just smack us for 2. So Snap Spell Center might have been the safer line in the face of Spell Pierces. The question is now, do we want to go for the Snap Damnation? I think so. I think Snap Damnation is a fine line here. Of course, if they have another Spell Pierce here, we're in a pretty rough spot. Yeah, looks like they do have another Spell Pierce. Wow, Heroic Intervention. Now that's one I haven't quite seen yet, out of Affinity at least. Oh, and that still kills my Snapcaster Mage. Oh my gosh, so that's way better than Spell Pierce, actually. Oof, this is a game that I thought I had locked up, actually. I maybe just didn't play around certain cards like I was supposed to. Master of Ethereum, again, they could still have something up here. Go ahead and tap their Steel over. Wow, okay. So now they're obviously not playing around another Damnation effect. Obviously top decking one would be pretty sweet, but doesn't look like that's it, but we could still be okay here. Maybe. Fatal Push gets rid of not much. And I feel like we threw this game away. Right? What does Fatal Push even do here, right? We haven't even lost, a permanent hasn't left the battlefield this turn for us. So we could Fatal Push the Steel Overseer, and then they just eat it. And we're still dead, right? Because that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. Thinking, do we have a draw that we could win with Serum Visions? I don't think so. So if our opponent makes some crazy error, we probably just want to do this right now. If our opponent just doesn't see a certain line, you know, doesn't swing out. Okay. Yeah, no, we're dead. I don't know what I'm doing here. Well, maybe they attack Jace for some reason. They might attack Jace. Attack me. Attack me. Attack Jace. Yeah. Okay. That's a shame. I definitely think we could have had that game, but you really gotta play tightly against Affinity. You can't make silly mistakes and just you know, burn your spells for no reason. On the play, actually, negate is a lot better, I would say. I was gonna say maybe we can cut one, but this hand is great. Looks like our opponent did have a lot of hate for us, right? Spell Pierce, Heroic Intervention. Those are pretty good cards. And that was our opponent's multi-6. So let's see if we can come back this game. But we could keep up Fatal Push on turn 1. We could also just go Serum Visions. I kind of it's tricky. But I think maybe playing Serum Visions is just more important this turn. We want to hit our land drops. So it looks like our opponent kept a 7. Looks like we're hitting land drops, right? So we probably don't need Field of Ruin. I think I do want Island, though. And we have Fatal Push for Arcbound Ravagers, Steel Overseers. Obviously, we can't beat a... can't stop anything with like a turn 1 Cranial Plating or anything like that, but it's not the end of the world, obviously. Field of Ruin might have been an interesting keep if we think our opponent is going to go like Master of Ethereum. And that way we can trigger Revolt for Fatal Push. But this looks like a pretty tame start for my opponent here. Again, I think I'm going to save the Spreading Seas for potential man lands. Because it still remains an artifact if we do that. So let's just go ahead and make sure we can have turn 4 Cryptic online. And here we can represent Spell Snare. We can represent a lot of things. Signal Pest, okay. So they do have Steel Overseer, okay. That resolves. I will Fatal Push it, I believe. Damnation, that's a sweet draw. But the question is, do we want to clear the way? Do we want to kill a creature and look at our opponent's hand? Maybe discard the Spreading Seas. It's -2/-2. We could discard Ghost Quarter, but I think I'm just going to go ahead and discard the Spreading Seas here. See what my opponent is sitting on. Because if we can resolve this Damnation and or Cryptic Command, and again, removing a creature here means Springleaf Drum won't allow them to play a 3-mana creature next turn. Which means we can maybe dodge. Oh my gosh. That's a really good hand for my opponent. They've got S Champion, they have Cranial Plating, and they have Gerper Aether Grid. And they can play the Aether Grid this turn. I would do that if I was my opponent. Just get it online and start pinging me to death. But S Champion is a respectable play too. Did they draw a 1-drop? Oh my god, a Thoughtseize? Ah, one turn. This is horrible. This is horrible. This is worst case scenario. So if I was my opponent, I would probably take... Yeah, that's fair, because that gets rid of that champion. And that's their threat on board. They don't have to even play anything into my Cryptic Command. Yeah, Hero's Downfall is pretty bad now. Again, we wouldn't have had time to even play the Spreading Seas, so it's okay that we got it out of our hand, I think. Again, we can take 2 a turn here. Again, a two turn clock. I mean, this is about a 9-turn clock here. Obviously, they have draws, we have draws, but it's not the end of the world. And if they draw a creature here, yeah, I will probably just Hero's Downfall that. Did they go Cranial Plating here, or did they go Gerper Aether Grid here? I think I'm going to counter that. Yeah, they could have cranial plating next turn, and that's going to be quite a beating, but I think this is the kind of card we can't beat in the long game. Okay. So we do have time here. We're not super dead. If we draw an untapped land, we could go Blink Moth, sure. Let's see what they equip that to. Probably the S champion. I don't see why they wouldn't do it to the S champion, unless they want to get some life. But yeah, that makes sense. Because like we are live for damnation here. Hero's downfall. Now they could activate Blink Moth to pump 1 extra damage, but then that turns off our ability to draw a untapped land to play Torrential Gearhulk. And I think that's a better out at this point. There we go. Okay, not dead. Not in a great position, but we're not dead. Another Blink Moth, okay. Yeah, 2 Blink Moths here. Yep. I guess I could have tap all, draw card. Yeah, because bouncing the cranial plating doesn't do much here. Yeah, I think I should have tapped all. Tapped all, draw a card. But we can just bounce cranial plating, draw a card, I guess. This means if they want to pump the Blink Moth, return target permanent to its owner's hand. Yeah, Snapcaster Mage is a good draw. Although it's not that good, actually. Because if they pump with Blink Moth here, go to 3, they play the cranial plating. Did we screw up here? Yeah, I think we should have been at 6 here. That's the thing. And they just had all the mana to do everything they wanted to do again. Yeah. Or we could just naturally draw Damnation. And then we have Ghost Quarter. Yeah, that's a fantastic draw. Obviously, we get in here, keep up Ghost Quarter. And now it's a game. Even though we should be at a higher life total, it's a game now. Although they could equip at instant speed. No, they can't equip at instant speed. Because they might have been able to, actually. Right? Because if they activate... No, they don't have enough mana to do all of that. Sure. Again, they have to attack with both here, I believe. And then we can Ghost Quarter this Blink Moth Nexus. Opponent does play Basic Mountain, which means we're dead to Galblast too. We're dead to a lot of things here. Yeah, because I feel like if my opponent activated Ink Moth, yeah, I think they had the kill here. At least I think. I'm no expert. Wow, Fatal Push. Such a good draw. I'm going to keep Snapcaster Mage in my hand, though. Like, I could go Snap Serum Visions here, but Snap Fatal Push seems a bit better here, especially because my opponent is relying on man lands here. Okay, so we had a good set of draws, and we can actually start putting our opponent on a 2-turn clock. Okay. Gonna let them swing first. And then they're probably going to instant speed pay 1 life to equip Cranium Plating to Inkmoth Nexus, and that puts them on a 2-turn clock. For a second I was worried I didn't have another Fatal Push in the yard. Whew. Cast with Flashback, targeting that guy. Alright, yep, so that puts my opponent on a 2-turn clock now, because they go down to 10. Then Snap plus Creeping Target is 5, and then do that twice, and that's 10. Wow, Negate, I don't know, I don't think I keep up Negate here. Obviously, if they draw Galblast, they draw Galblast, but Signal Pest is a chump blocker. I guess not exactly a chump blocker, right? Because they can equip Cranium Plating, sure. So now a Fatal Push would be lethal. First, let's present lethal. We can trade Snapcaster Mage here. We dodge 1 draw step from our opponent. Opponent goes down to 2. Again, we can't keep up Negate, so we might as well Serum Visions. Neither of us are going to be playing around anything at this point. I mean, Liliana is a good card. I'll keep her on top. Alright, 1 turn. Fade 1 draw step. Can we do it? Whew! That was quite an intense last match here with Blue-Black Control. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and stay tuned for the closing statements with this Under the Microscope series. I'll see you guys very, very soon. Alright, guys, welcome back to the closing comments here with Blue-Black Control. Hopefully you really enjoyed those 3 matches. So we got to play against 3, I would say, pretty competitive decks, right? We played against Green-Black Tron. We played against that new As Foretold Living End deck, and we played against Affinity. Let's go one by one. So I'm really happy how the deck performed against the big mana matchup. We had a really nice mix of counter spells and land hate that allowed us to keep our opponent off of critical mana, and then that meant that Mana Leak and even Spell Snare could even be live at certain points in the game, right? So I really enjoyed how the deck performed. Field of Ruin, Ghost Quarter go a long way in helping your game plan against some of the biggest meta percentage right now, which is big mana, Eldrazi Tron and Green-Black Tron and Mono Green Tron and things like that, right? So overall, I'm really happy how the deck performed. Obviously, 9 land hate cards plus a Crucible of Worlds 10 really means that Tron is going to have a difficult time getting off, especially post-board when we bring in the Sinful Strokes, Negates. And as we saw, Ashiok actually played a pretty sweet role there. It allowed us to play kind of a cheap threat that kept ticking up and up. And then, of course, we were able to keep up counter magic. Then, of course, against As Foretold Living End, we just don't have the sideboard hate that we're really looking for here. We obviously had counter spells. We sequenced our spells a bit incorrectly in I think, game 2. So maybe we just need a bit more dedicated graveyard hate, right? I don't know if we necessarily want to just, is this results-oriented thinking, but maybe the deck is a bit susceptible to graveyard-based strategies, and it would be nice to have maybe more Nile Spell Bombs, maybe Leyline of the Void, which is what we had previously, but we ended up switching it. So we had 4 Leyline of the Void previously, but now we have 2 Surgicals, 2 Nile Spell Bombs. And then we got to play against Affinity, which I think is a pretty good matchup. Game 2, I can't quite remember how we lost it, but it was one of the matches that so it was the Spell Pierce into Heroic Intervention, right? So they drew 2 of their premium sideboard cards. However, we could have played around it, right? We could have played with that in mind, but we didn't. So it's important to keep in mind that I think this deck is decently positioned against Affinity. However, we could play a little bit more tightly in those games because it's really easy to make one mistake and lose, especially in that game 3 as we saw where I could have tapped down their team instead of bouncing the cranial plating, which would have saved us 3 life, which is a lot of life. So overall, I think that we could have played those matches a little tighter, but I'm pretty happy with how it all performed in the end. Affinity should generally be a good matchup. But that's how it performed in those 3 games there. Hopefully you got a glimpse of how this deck performs. I do think this Spell Snare and Negate, they're pretty important for the main deck. You could maybe cut this Negate for a second Spell Snare, but overall, most of this deck feels really smooth. You know, you have really nice keepable hands. You have a lot of stuff to do between turns 1 to 3, and then you have a lot of ways to take advantage between turns 4 and up. You know, which is really nice. I would say I guess the deck just needs some bit work on the sideboard, but overall, I hope you guys enjoyed this, I guess, second Under the Microscope series with blue-black control. Again, I love control variants. This is what I live for. So hopefully you were able to enjoy that, and you know how this deck runs, and maybe you give it a shot at your FNM or on Magic Online, and you let me know how this goes for you, because I would really appreciate some feedback, because maybe next time we play this deck, we run it through a modern competitive league. Anyways, thanks so much for watching, guys, and stay tuned for more content, hopefully coming up later this week. I'll see you guys soon.